Hello, everybody, and welcome to you if it's your first time joining us for one of these sessions, and welcome back to many people that we recognise from previous sessions. I'm Jenny Pelling. I'm the Director of Apprenticeship Development and Diversity at Kaplan, and have the absolute privilege of working with Ross McWilliam from Mindset Pro on your wider personal development. And today we're looking at a topic that I can certainly relate to, and I think many of us do at different stages of our career, around confidence and building your confidence and how to be more assertive at work. It's something that you've told us in the past that you wanted us to look at from your previous feedback. So we've got 45 minutes together today to discuss this topic. Ross, may I hand over to you?
Yes, thank you, Jenny. Ditto, working with you. If you put confidence in Google Explorer, you'll come out with about 3 million replies. It's one of the most searched after words that we have. And that's probably because we're not exactly sure how to improve it, how to keep it, how to get more of it. And so we're going to try and interrogate that today a little bit and link it to assertiveness at the workplace. Not aggressiveness, assertiveness. So let's just have a quick look what's on the agenda today. We've got 45 minutes. And before I put the agenda up, I always say this, but it's always important that I say it. We want to make you feel safe and secure. We want to make you feel you're part of this process. As Jenny said, we take the feedback from you. We create the content and the titles based on your choices. But as we're here today, ask any questions through the Q&A for now. You can do it afterwards to Jenny or myself. We want to make sure that you end up a bit more empowered rather than a little bit more frustrated. We want to do it in a safe way. So we'll look at what is confidence. There's a link between self-esteem and confidence. Got a great little diagram for you on that one. Some of the factors that can affect confidence, and you'll be pleased to know it's not your own personal fault a lot of the times with confidence. If you think you've got less confidence, some things could have happened to us, genetics and the environment, that can make us more vulnerable to having less or more confidence. So that might be a reassuring thought for you. We'll look at some interventions that we could use. These are mainly longer term interventions that you might want to explore. We'll look at measuring your confidence, and you don't have to tell us your scores unless you want to, unless you're confident. That's a definition of it. We'll look at the relationship between resilience and adaptability, how it links to confidence. And we'll look at being assertive at the end. Okay. I like this at the bottom. It really sums it up for me. And you might have seen this before. Confidence is not, will they like me? Confidence instead is, I'll be fine if they don't. Sort of that bravado, that, hey, I'm on a path, and you're not going to knock me off it sort of thing. So in simple terms, confidence, I've always thought about it as this way, not being afraid to think, feel, or do. So feel a certain way, to think a certain way, to do a certain thing or not do something. And I've put some examples here. Speaking out, especially against the flow. So a confident person is not scared to speak their mind. If everybody in that room disagrees with them, that's a confident person. Being quiet without being intimidated, because a lot of people associate confidence with being quite talkative and boisterous and full of whatever it is they've got. But also being quiet is a good sign that somebody's confident, relaxed in their own self. Allowing others to speak and taking opportunity to speak when they arise. Now that's a really interesting one. You might see somebody, if you have a drink now and again and go in the pub and you see somebody talking and they're really confident. But for me, the really confident, emotionally confident people are aware of other people's feelings and they don't take the limelight all the time. That's the best sort of confidence to have. And developing skills, qualities, and talents. When we do that, our confidence portfolio increases. So it is about these skills, qualities, and talents. When you've got those, you might appear, and you probably are, more confident to other people. Not being afraid of failure. Okay, absolutely. You can't ring fence it. And when I say that, is what I mean is you can be confident today on those little definitions there, but you might lose it tomorrow for whatever reason. So you've got to keep working at it. If I spoke in public, as I do virtually every day, I suppose in some ways I quite like it. I need to do it. If I didn't speak for a year, then would that confidence decrease? It's an interesting question, isn't it? And all the research says you've got to keep practicing it. Now, what I talk about is this diagram here. So let's go down right to ground zero. the components of confidence are very simple. It's based on what's called self-esteem or self-worth. If we think we're worth something, we'll be able to show it and demonstrate it in the world. And so if you've got self-esteem, that self-worth, that then allows you the ability to then demonstrate confidence, not to be scared to say, think, or do things. And if you want a diagram of it, we could say the handle of the umbrella is self-esteem. You've got to have that umbrella handle ready in your hand to go. And when it's strong, that self-esteem, that self-worth, you value yourself, you can open the canopy of confidence. And then you're not scared to do and think and say. You can be quiet when everybody else is loud. You can help other people to speak. All the aspects of confidence are there. So the essence of this is you must value yourself before you can demonstrate confidence. And it's a great little example of that. Now, I mentioned briefly before about, somebody's fault, nobody's fault. We're all different, but I'm a big believer, and there's research out there to suggest that we're all born with the same amount of confidence. We all start from that ground zero. And it's what happens to us on our journeys in life, the opportunities that are presented. Do we take them or do we shy away from them? Sadly, some of the traumas we experience, maybe the groups we're involved in, the education, the parents are a big thing, parents and siblings. If you look here, sexuality, disability, mental health, there's lots of factors that can affect our confidence development and keeping confidence. A lot of those things we have no control over. So that's a reassuring thought in a way. So the reason I put this slide up is to stop you blaming yourself I'm not as good as somebody else, because it could be something as simple as genetics. Yeah. But we know we can develop confidence in anybody. Yeah. To lesser or greater degrees, depending on what's happening in this frame of reference. So all things aren't lost. We always have hope. So what's affecting confidence? How we see the world. Whether you know it or not, you've got a narrative running around in your head all the time. If I do this, will they say sorry? Will they get this opportunity? This is how it should be. And our expectations and aspirations sort of are a frame of our world. And if sometimes things don't fit into what we expect them to be, that can affect our confidence. So I'm 40 years old, good imagination, but imagine I'm 40 years old and I think I should be in a top level job by now. And if I'm not, then I'm a failure. And that can impact, that thought process can impact our ability to sustain, keep, and develop confidence. So how we see the world can really take away your confidence or grow it. And I think for me, it's always about being humble, being patient, and being able to see the longer picture. Emma's got a hand up. Jenny, do you want? Is it a nice question I've got? Can't hear you, Jenny. Can't hear you, Jenny. Yeah, there you go. You're trying to make me lip read.
The chat is now enabled, so people can put comments in the chat if they like and questions.
Good stuff. Okay, let's move on then. So your narrative of the world, your interpretation of experiences. I could speak somewhere, and that's not always the best example of confidence, but let's use it for now. I could speak somewhere and thought that was rubbish. I didn't come across good. Then somebody else can say, actually, that was really good, Ross. I really liked it. And then somebody else confirms that. And all of a sudden, you can change things around. So I do think confident people have the ability to lean towards positivity more than negativity and see the upsides and opportunities rather than the downsides and threats. I think that's a quality that will help you keep developing confidence. As long as I say, developing that emotional confidence, not being the loudmouth all the time, letting other people come into play. I think it's really important now. Trauma. If you've had a trauma when you're younger, and that can really impact your confidence. I used to work with a lot of challenged children, and they really struggled. They had some confident behavior, but you can almost like pop it like with a balloon. It was very transient, very fragile. And for me, confidence is going against something. It doesn't go quite right, but you pick yourself up, you go again, and maybe get it better next time, and you start growing all the time through your experiences. So when something negative happens, that could be a real opportunity to test yourself. And that's why I sort of look at the world. Empowering or disempowering role models. Your parents, if you had, decent parents, and not everybody does, but if you had decent parents, they could be the role models that drive you. My father always said to me, just go and do it. Don't think about it too much. Just go and do it. And then we'll talk about it afterwards. And I think there's a simplicity in that does allow you to grow. But think about your role models, definitely. And I like this word now, adaptation, the ability to adapt. It's really important that we adapt. And I've got some great examples for you shortly. Resilience is very similar. I like resilience, but I don't love it. I'll come back to why I do that shortly. Your mental health, yeah, that can change in a second, in a heartbeat, can change from hour to hour, day to day, week to week. And if that feels good, it's another platform like the umbrella handle to actually grow our confidence. Yeah, to not to be scared to say and do and take chances and have a go at the world. Yeah, opportunities are everywhere. Our aspirations and expectations at school, in a simple way, if the teacher's expectations are too high for you, that could really make you nervous, less confident, and less likely to perform at the standard that people expect you to. If you have resources and support, massive, massive one. You almost think it's down to you if something fails in your eyes, but often having the right support and resources over time, it's almost like the best possible outcome you're going to get with these resources and support. You're going to get success at some point. And that's what I said before, just about being patient sometimes. And there are other things that we don't know. With 3 million inquiries on the internet there are more things to do with what that confidence is and how to keep it. But I think from my experience, these are some of the main players that we need to think about. So let's assume then that some of us want to get more confidence, some of us want to develop it and grow it and use it as a real tool for change for us. There's lots of different things out there. So you've got lots of positive psychology where often the basis of this is focusing on your strengths, not your weaknesses, and leaving the past behind. Now, that sounds very simple or even simplistic, but there is a lot of strength in that. What's gone has gone. And I learn more from my failures, looking at the past. I should have done that differently, could have done this next time. And that's where my reflection, or we call it in the game, metacognition, thinking about thinking, gives me my next step up for next performance. But remember, and I mentioned this before in other webinars with you guys, we have around 6,000 thoughts a day and 70 to 80% are negative. So almost like you're trying to hijack and sabotage yourself. So always lean towards positivity, as I said before. Try and interpret things with a positive spin on it. And it will serve you well, not just today, not just tomorrow, but I think for the rest of your lives, leading towards that positivity. There's a very popular one that came around the 1980s, neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, where you practice using positive language, association with images and sounds and smells and tastes. Sounds really weird. Okay, and practice it in response to a challenge. So, for instance, we use this a lot in sports where people might do a rugby kick between the posts and they imagine the ball going over. They might do some connections and breathing with the hands to slow things down, to get them into that zone to perform. So NLP is quite a quick hit for strategies for people to use as long as it's practiced over and over again. And I do think a large element of confidence to do with preparation and practice. If you want more than that, loads of books. And again, I can give you that through myself or Jenny. CBT seems to be associated more with people who've got some challenges going on. They use this a lot within the NHS. And basically, it gives you, if you're responding in a certain way to a certain stimulus or challenge, and you don't feel you're being successful, it gives you other ways to respond to get different outcomes. So we're tweaking how we're responding to a situation. It might be, I don't like going to parties. Parties make me nervous, so I'm not going to go to any parties. But a CBT person might say to you, well, why don't we try one party? Why don't you stop for half an hour and see if your world changes in a positive way? Do you meet somebody? Did you quite enjoy it? Was it something a bit different for us? So I think CBT is a more long-term solution if you've got a challenge with your confidence at the moment. The one I quite like is ACT, acceptance commitment therapy, where you have some nerves. And obviously when we're not as confident, we generally have some threats, some nerves. And basically what he's saying is like, recognize that. What's going on now? Is my stomach pounding? Have I got a bit of a headache? Do I feel twitchy? Can I speak? Can I say my own name? And just recognizing this, accepting it, stay with the fear, and then that fear will eventually subside. And the more you get aware of it, in tune with your body, it wants you to perform, but you're actually overperforming, you're over ready, then it helps you get into that zone again. We've talked about this in the past, but it's a very simple one. And again, what we're doing now in a little bit of way, we're talking about coaching. supporting somebody else, giving them some tips and strategies for you to go away and use and come back and share them with us. Now, I'm going to take a bit of an example out here. And I don't know if I shared this one with Jenny before, but it's a really good one. So it's called solution focused therapy. Similar to the ones, but different. I'm going to go through what's called the miracle question. So let's imagine that you've got a challenge where you're not so confident, okay? And I don't know what it is. It could be speaking, it could be volunteering, it could be meeting someone for the first time, it could be taking an exam. Yeah. So I don't need to know, but
I think Ross is frozen for me. I don't know about everybody else. Whilst he is, he has for everyone. That's keeping us hanging is on the knife edge there. The miracle question will have to wait. It's not you, Emma, it's the connection. But whilst he's returning, something we were going to ask in a little bit was, what situations are you finding that you're lacking confidence in specifically? And are there any areas of work where you're finding it difficult to be assertive in particular? So whilst he rejoins, let's do that. Are there any, what areas are you particularly lacking confidence in, and what areas of work do you think you need to be more assertive? So let's see what everyone is putting in together. I hope you've got chat now. Speaking to bosses. Okay. Interesting. Asking your line manager for help. One-to-one interviews often do that. Difficult conversations, challenging others. So some interesting points there. And often I think, what would they have felt in my situation? When, if you reverse the tables, they would have been in your position once, and they probably would want you to feel that you could ask that question, you could ask for help. Raising issues, delegating work, being firm. Now that's a really interesting one Lewis has said about delegating and being firm. I think if we're crystal clear in how we're asking something, and we ask somebody else to repeat back to us what our request has been, that's really beneficial. I think a lot of the confusion comes around fudging our words a little bit and not being really, really clear. I'm not so good at that, actually. I probably use too many words, but I notice in others the clarity of instruction really helps. Okay, speaking to clients. Somebody said speaking to clients and discussing errors. Okay, let's take speaking to clients. The personal connection is really important when we're having conversations with clients. And I think sometimes we feel we have to go straight in to the solution or the problem they're trying to resolve. And yes, people's time is really, precious, but being able to establish a personal connection does ease things in, and they just want to do business with people. It's an old adage, but it's a true one. So seeing if you can find a personal connection before you're resolving the business issue would be one. Let's see what we've got. Disagreeing with others' views. Okay, so that's interesting. Disagreeing with others' views, Joanne. Sometimes you've got to have independence of thought, and it's difficult in a kind of, maybe in a groupthink situation or a culture where people tend to say yes. A lot of you have within your apprenticeship standard areas around ethics and professional skepticism. And it's pretty much part of that, isn't it? That we need to be thinking critically and independently so that we can challenge the position of others and not necessarily adhere to the kind of groupthink mentality. So never lose sight of that. That should be your a north star. Okay, somebody else has got working with conflicting personalities, not feeling I'm able to make my point. Conflict again. Ross is coming back. Hi there.
oh, I'm back. I'm
Yeah,
back.
no problem. We've been having a merry chat looking at the issues of confidence people are facing,
You've taken this
ranging.
opportunity.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good.
I mean, some really good sharing here going on about wanting more opportunities, but being worried about mistakes, speaking with people and finding them intimidating, not
Yeah,
allowing, I really like this one, not allowing people to walk over me,
yeah.
really standing firm. So we've had a good old debate about this.
And that's interesting because we're talking about being assertive at the second half of today. Yeah. And I was just thinking, as something happened there, but I don't really get nervous. I get curious, why has that happened? And let's get it back in again. And like you did there, Jenny, a bit of a challenge, but I'll use it as an opportunity to actually ask the questions, get a bit of feedback. So it could have worked for us more than against us then. And I'm just noticing I haven't got my share up yet. Is anybody going to give me the share and the thing? But I can talk anywhere without the presentation, which is easy enough for me to do.
That's fine. You should have sharing rights if you
Yeah.
want to do that. But if not, I'll do that in the background and you can carry
Yeah, it's saying host disabled, participant sharing.
on.
So I
Maybe
don't
that's
know.
because you left. You carry on, and
Okay.
I'll go back to emails at some point.
So we're going to do this miracle question then. So I guess what you're saying, I get what you're saying with Jenny there, some of the things, and we can pick those up again at the end because I always get Jen to stop me early. But let's go this miracle question. So imagine then you've got this challenge going on, and we go to bed tonight, and it's on your mind, that worry you mentioned before. But when you wake up in the morning, just imagine, keep with me now, that all that worry is gone, right? I don't know what it is you're worrying about, but it's gone, and your world becomes perfect. It's not there anymore. How do you start thinking about the world? How do you start feeling? How do you start behaving? And when people start behaving differently from what's before, when that worry is taken away, that's when you start to reveal the confident personality. So when you worry about something, it puts a limit on your confidence. So what I'm trying to do with the miracle question is just let you guys to push that worry away. It's just a game. Push it away. And how would you act in the next day? How would you think and how would you feel? And when you start behaving and acting differently, it sort of self-fulfills. You get more confidence, you take more opportunities, you start talking out or you start listening, get less intimidated from other people. And that's what we want, because worry takes away your potential. And it's very important. There we go. It's very important that we don't let worry take things away from us. It's powerful stuff, worry, and it helps you and hinders you in so many different ways. Okay. I've got someone doing it for me as well, which is great here. Go from the beginning, whatever, we'll whiz through it again. Look at that. That's quick, isn't it? Wow. Look at this. All that stuff we've done so far. And we've done that miracle question. Okay. So let's go back one. Okay. We did that. Okay. So there are some aspects to that miracle question that allows you for a second or two just to imagine a world where you've got more confidence. So what I'm trying to say to you in a very unsophisticated way is, if you can relegate or put some of that worry to one side, your actual true personality will come out. Yeah, we're not all perfect, but when you relegate the worry, then you can think, right, what do I need to be a great speaker, for instance? I need to do some more practice. I need to do some more research, some preparation. I need to share it with somebody else, get some feedback. And once we start taking worry out of the equation, growth is possible. And it's the worry that stops our growth. On the screen here, I've got a little measure of confidence. You want to do it now. So each question, you get a maximum of 10. 10's a good score, 1's not so good score. And ask yourself, do you take on challenges? If you're taking on some of the time, maybe give yourself a 5 or a 6. Do you value yourself? Your self-esteem is unique. Like I said before, lean to the positive side of things. Is your interpretation always accurate? And that's an interesting concept in itself. Are you prepared to take action? So have a go at that. If anyone wants to share through the chat box or, anything like that, you want to share your score. Was it a good reflection? Was it accurate? And technically 50 is your top score. I would say, at least halfway, you've got a lot of foundations. Okay. So if you've got, 20, around 20, you've got a good base to work from. Less than 20 because some specific reason, going back to that frame of reference slide before. Is anybody sharing any scores, Jenny, that we can talk about? 17. Okay. So you're basically at that ground level where you've got the good foundation, like climbing Mount Everest. You've got the good base and go from there. And again, it's not a competition. When you see somebody else's, Unconfident people start comparing, and we're all at different stages of our development. So Jenny and I are similar, but we're at different stages. So I can't say Jenny's got 28 and I've got 25 and not as good as Jenny. It's not about comparison. And that is one of the things with worry that eats away our confidence when we start comparing. So some good scores there. And if anybody has any low scores from that, again, if you're really concerned, do some action, email me, talk to us, and we'll try and look at that for you. Okay, it's just a bit of, not want to say fun, but it's another little window on what we feel like. Okay, let's move on to smart resilience. Often confidence is linked to resilience, and most people will talk about, thanks Alan, 21, it's a good base level. Most people talk about resilience in terms of bounce back ability, keep pushing, you know, and I think they're interesting examples there. And I've got a bit of a downer on resilience because I think it can make us be very brittle and fragile to keep pushing, to keep pushing, to keep pushing. If I was in the SAS, for instance, and I've got to keep running, and if I don't keep running, somebody's going to shoot me, then I'll keep running, even with my bad knee. Yeah. And I think we don't have everyday ability to survive. Most days are about thriving. And one of the biggest writers on this, Dr. Rick Hansen, talks about resilience is not about surviving your worst day. Resilience is about thriving in every day. And it's a really good phrase, that, yeah, to thrive. And to thrive, you don't push yourself to the wall all the time. So with resilience, for me, it's having some energy, being optimistic, leaning towards optimism again, aware of when you're not quite as good, or awareness when you're really good. Having a go at something, which means that challenging something, challenge it a couple of times. But if it's not working, step back and reflect. Yeah. Look after your heart health and be agile in terms of every aspect of psychological, emotional, and physical. Be this adaptable. And that's what I like to focus on now. So rather than see resilience as the be all and end all, push, 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 see it as being adaptable. And this feeds into our confidence. So if we look on the next slide now, Jenny, put it through to us. Adaptability is a better word than resilience. How you adapt to a situation. If I'm going to demonstrate some confident behaviors and something goes wrong with a piece of equipment like before, do I then fall and go, I can't do it anymore? Oh, it's terrible. I'll never do this again in my life. Or do I think, okay, let's get back on the horse again. Let's have a go. So this guy here, Matthew Jordan, is a golfer, professional golfer who's playing this year at the Open in Royal Hoylake in Liverpool. And he had a good score. He ended up about 8th from the leaderboard at the end. And it started to rain. And a lot of golfers, the scores went down. This guy was so happy inside playing his home golf course, a young professional, and having a good round. His rounds got better and better and better because he adapted to the environment better than anybody else. The guy in the middle, Joe Simpson, he fell off a mountain in the Andes in 1985 and almost died. And he had to get out of this desert where it was really hot during the day and freezing at night. And he crawled on his hands and knees with broken legs, some ribs gone, dislocated shoulder, and he made it out. Now, that's a real resilience. He adapted, and that was an example of the SES stuff. But as much as I've got two contrasting ones there, the guy on the right, you might have heard of him, called Cliff Young. He was 61 and he won an ultra, what we say, a running race at 541 miles. And because he knew a lot of younger people much fitter than him, it was about him adapting to the actual course dimensions of distance, but also when you could run. So most people ran and slept at night. He shuffled to save his energy and didn't sleep. All right. So that's him adaptable. And he won by about 6 hours from all these younger people, half his age. And they call it the young shuffle. Have you heard of him, Jenny?
I haven't heard of him, but I want to bring that back to a comment somebody's made. And because I'm conscious of we've got 15 minutes left and we want to get on to assertiveness. Somebody just made a comment in the chat about confidence shifting with age, having been confident when younger, but actually losing confidence when older. So I want us to talk about that. And then another comment that's had lots of follow-up things is people who find a task difficult and don't ask for help, and then they shut down instead and worry about it. So how you adapt to that situation.
Yeah, I think I said before, you can't ring fence confidence. Some people with age get better, they mature and they don't worry about things as much, to get things in context and they just get on with it. and the real self comes out. And that's the bit when they're really flowing. Other people can lose it, get old. If you take it to an extreme level, you often find as people get into older age, and I'm talking about 50, 60 retirement age now, you can lose a lot of your confidence. You maybe your physical health and mental health might be declining. You maybe not got the purpose at work anymore. And therefore you feel challenged on so many different fronts, and you feel very vulnerable health-wise. I think that can really affect it. But if you're a younger person like we've got today, you've got to think it as a series of steps or stages, that every stage is not going to be incremental. But there's the good bit. If you slip down a stage, that's the time when you can actually remember what really to do next time, to take that opportunity to go and get something you need for that better performance. And this is where we talk about being vulnerable, talking, sharing, trying to relegate the worry, get some skills. So when you step up again and perform, then you actually start making a double performance. It's exponential based on your failure. So when we slip a little bit, that's probably a better word than failure, or failure, first attempt in learning, I think it's a good thing to learn from those mistakes to move on forward. I often work with a lot of independent schools, and they don't seem to experience any sort of failure. But when they get to the big wide world, they hit a failure and it knocks them for six. And it's having those little backward steps as you go through life that helps you catapult to the future.
It's a nice phrase. Right,
yeah.
let's move on. We've got some fantastic comments in the chat, so we need to come back to those. So do you want me just to
Yes, please.
move on a little bit now?
Okay. Has anyone resolved the conflict by being assertive? You think it's like the opposite, isn't it? You be nice and placid and then it'll go away. But by being assertive, we can resolve conflict. Okay. And it's an interesting concept, isn't it? Yeah. Moving on, please, Jenny. So I think reflection is a big thing. And I've told this before, metacognition. So when something doesn't go quite right, or when it goes really well, how can I make it better? How can I make it not happen again? So where's the evidence that I'm in the wrong? My narrative of the world could be skewed. It could be flawed. I might see the world in very perfect ways. Yeah. And it must be like this. And I must say this at that particular time. I must do this in a certain way. And I'm almost bound by that thinking, that definition, to have failure. Okay. I don't like the word failure. I just like, it doesn't matter. We'll move on. We'll do it again tomorrow. And having that ability to propel yourself forward through reflection is what makes people win at whatever it is in life. Am I new to this role, the company, the type of work? So it didn't go quite well. Is it because I'm just new? I don't know what's going on. Could I have done something different, being introspective? Was it me who created the conflict? Did I prolong it? So all these sort of questions are getting to think, was it my behaviors? Was it done to me? Did I do it to them? And I think a little bit of this, it can be useful on your own, but I think it's more useful done with a good partner, somebody you can talk these things through. So if you've got a good person at work or at home, you can talk through very vulnerably about these. That gives you a different perspective. And a different perspective is often a good perspective, because our mind wants to go negative all the time. So I think this exercise, whatever the questions are, is best done together. So if you want to improve your confidence, have some reflective sessions with a good friend and challenge some of the areas what's happened and use these sort of questions. Jenny? So reflection, being assertive. So it could be somebody else in the office, right? So being assertive might not be about you. Are they usually this type, like this personality type? Are they presenting different behaviors because there's some extra pressure at home or at work? Is there something about the culture of the company where it just get it all done at all costs? So it's not really about you, it's just about the culture of the company. Yeah. Is your role, when I used to work at Preston North End, commercial manager's role, it was basically about get the job done, make the money, keep quiet until you've done it. And at the time, I quite liked it. Looking back now, there was no learning. It was just failure or success. Hit the million budget in those days or not. And I think that's why when I left the company, it was a relief. Didn't feel it at the time, but now I look back, it's such a relief. So there could be many reasons why people are not acting the same way to you. And maybe they're being over assertive, over aggressive. But then you can look at it and take the blame off yourself. It's really important to remember that, to take the blame off yourself. where you think that's appropriate. Next one, please, Jenny. Okay, again. Okay, so very briefly, if you want to be assertive, you've got to know how you communicate. And most people think it's through the words. Your words only account for 7% of the communication process. Your tone and pitch and your pauses, your pregnant pauses, are almost halfway to getting the right message across. But it's the body, the arm, the face, when it's congruent with that voice and tone and those pauses, that's 93% of your communication is to do with anything but words. So if you want the right message, it's not about using the right words. It's using the right body language, facial expressions, tone of voice, speed of voice, all those sort of things. So that might help you to be more effective and more assertive communicating with somebody else. Yeah. Next one, please, Jenny. So being assertive. Okay, I think there's another slide in this one, Jenny. It's a better slide. Let's go to the next slide for us. Yeah. So non-skills, if you want to be ineffective, less assertive, speak too fast, be angry, point your finger. And there was a politician who pointed his finger, and he was in training to be an MP, and the person said, hang on a second, you can't point as if someone does something wrong. If you're going to do it, put your knuckle down like this and don't make it too personal. And he said it'll help you come across as less aggressive. Aggressive body position, if you're demanding, if you're listening to interrupt something rather than listening to understand something, and in the public place, you know, basically these non-skills will make you appear to be more aggressive and less controlling, and people will not value as much. So if you press the next slide, Jenny, what we're really looking for, and again, what we're really looking for is someone to be calm, to speak slowly, to speak clearly, to have good eye contact. And good eye contact means up to 2 seconds. After 2 seconds, it's a stare. So 2 seconds, stare at somebody, then move it around, drop your eyelids down, move again across to a different conversation, come back to the person, open gestures with our hands. You want to be assertive, okay, open your hands, that means you're no threat. And I think these are some of the body positions make us congruent with our demeanors, irrespective of the words, that make us open to actually be able to become more assertive, but in a gentle way. And listen to somebody. Don't try and interrupt them and put them down. It's really important to do that. And it's more appropriate where you've got a place where it's not too public, okay? It's a very quick way to be assertive. It's being slow, being clear, being calm. So if you want to read through those, this is your mantra of 7 principles if you want to develop more assertiveness, wherever it's at home or at work, with your relationships. You can't run away from the truth. Interrogate reality. Come out from behind yourself into the conversation and make it real. That's basically saying be vulnerable. Yeah. Be prepared to be in that moment and nowhere else and being distracted. Do your toughest challenge today. Yeah, that sounds strong, doesn't it? Obey your instincts, trust your gut, take responsibility, and don't bribe or threaten people. Yeah. Some people use the ultimatums, but it can actually backfire you very quickly. Another slide, please, Jenny, because I want to get to those questions at the end. This lady I read a book about, it must have been about 2002 when it came out. If you want to be assertive, face the challenge. Okay. So if I'm with Jenny now, I've got a challenge with Jenny, I would say, Jenny, I'd like to talk to you about why that internet keeps going out. I want to hear your side of it. Yeah. I want to understand your side of what your perception was. Then I want you to listen to my side of it. We've both got something to lose here. Yeah. We've both got a lot to gain to help these people develop their careers through Kaplan. Okay. And it's all about them, not about us. And that might be a format you use if you want to confront somebody to show that you're not scared, you've got some level of assertion, and you've got that confidence, not being afraid to say, think, or do. So I like that one. I've used that quite a little bit. I've done some CPD around that. And when I've used it to people, I said, actually, I didn't want to talk to the person, but now I have. We've made up and we're best friends. It's interesting, isn't it?
That will really help, because that came up in the chat when you were having your internet problems, actually. So this structure, I think, can really help people get into the habit of having frank conversations.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's a very good thing, but we don't be scared of having them. You know, Right. I think we're on the last slide. So can we have some questions? I think Jenny's the one slide to come.
That's it. It's just, but then we're back to what questions they would like to ask,
Yeah.
which
Excellent.
is, I'm going to stop sharing because we have had a lot of things in the chat I really want us to get to, Ross, if that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think you've got to chat as well. Do you want to dive into those?
Yeah. Let's have a look. Okay. In no particular order, let's have a look. So there's a long one here. Let's see if it works for me. Yeah. I find mental barriers between myself and people at work who use a sharp, blunt tone where I am happier and more bubbly. That makes me feel like I've done something wrong. Well, do you know what? To sit just from the last slide there, I'd like to talk to you about what I see as your behavior in office. Okay. I want to hear your viewpoint about how you operate in the office. And I'll tell you how I interpret it. I think we've both got a lot to lose, but a lot to gain. Because if we're both happier, we're both performing better, we're both going to have better careers. So that's a good thing to say. Some of your behaviors make me feel a bit upset, and I'd like to hear your views on that. I think just being direct sometimes is often the best way and only way to go. Our good friend, the imposter syndrome. I like
Yeah,
that.
that's there. Let's take the one that quite a few people commented on, which is twofold really. Speaking with people who you find intimidating, and secondly, needing to ask a question because you don't quite understand something at work, not asking the question, trying to do it, worrying about it, and then feeling worse afterwards. Let's take those
Yeah.
two.
Yeah, well, go in reverse order then. That's wish you'd said something, done something, you don't, and it makes you feel bad afterwards. And it could be an altercation at like a petrol station. Somebody intimidates you a little bit and you back down. And afterwards, you think, I don't want to keep backing down to that when I especially am in the right. It makes you feel worse about yourself. Brené Brown used to say, find a bit of bravery every day, a bit of bravery to think, you know what, I don't want to do this. My instinct is to run away or not confront it, but I'm going to change it up because I want something different in my life. And I'm going to say, well, actually, I don't agree with that. Open hands again. Actually, I don't agree with that. And I'll tell you why I don't agree with it. And then do the master stroke. The master stroke is you're not begging here, you're using lots of pregnant pauses. Have lots of quietness in your when you come back to somebody and let them fill the gap. So actually, I didn't like that, Jenny. It's not the way I usually operate. And then I'll go quiet. Let her think about it. Take the heat out and give her some thinking time, some processing time. What was the first question, Jenny?
I'm just going to share because somebody's asked me to put back on screen the 7 principles.
Yeah.
So are they coming on screen? Can you see those
Yeah,
now?
I can see those. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So people wanted to note down those.
Yeah.
And then we had a conversation about, so I want to come back to the confidence points that you spoke about earlier about losing confidence when you get older. We do have lots of learners of different ages. So
Yeah.
what advice, you mentioned that it can be a challenge. What
Yeah.
advice would you give
Yeah.
for our older learners?
Yeah. And again, this is same advice in some ways to younger learners, but it doesn't have to go less confident to get older. Some people go in the autumn of their lives later on and develop all the skills and knowledge and resources and put it to good use. So I think you can be very evergreen at this and get better as you get older. And it would seem to suggest the more experiences you get and the more you learn from those experiences, you're going to have that positive snowball effect. So I wouldn't say it's getting less necessarily, but to keep it or to maintain it or to improve it, you've got to keep practicing and evaluate. So we call it plan, perform, evaluate. So I'll plan my activities, I'll deliver them, perform them, and then afterwards I'll think about it myself. I might go to Jenny afterwards and say, Jenny, what was good? What was bad about this? What do you think about that? And I might go to another trusted friend and ask them about some of the performance I've done somewhere else.
Mm.
And obviously, I take feedback from clients all the time, and that helps me sort of justify where I'm at and what I need to change.
Brilliant.
And
Okay. Sorry.
carry on. Yeah.
I was going to say, let's take 2 more because I'm conscious of time. And whilst
Yeah.
I do that, I'm just going to put in here in the chat the link to the survey that we really, I know we've had a couple of glitches today, but we would really like your feedback on other sessions you'd find helpful. And yes, we will share the slides. So 2 things to cover. One is talking to people who you find intimidating. And the
Right. Got you.
second one is, if you're more senior, so if you're, an apprentice at level 7 and you've got to give feedback to more junior apprentices, how you do that if you're feeling that you haven't quite got the confidence there.
Yeah. Well, they're both linked in a way. Not being intimidated. If you're going to be intimidated once, you're more likely to be intimidated twice. And if you're doing twice to three times, that becomes a habit. And you don't want to spend your life running away from something. As I said today, often when we confront something face on in a genuine, authentic, caring, kind way, we can get some good answers. So when you see intimidation, I think that's an opportunity to actually, I'm not living like this anymore. That's enough. That's the final straw. And I'm going to gently approach somebody and talk about it. And I think the other, what, Jenny, remind me again, I've got so many things thinking about. The second
That's
question
okay.
there
The second
about
is
if you're a
related.
Jew,
If you're more senior and
yeah,
you've got to give feedback to somebody more junior and you find that difficult.
yeah, or the other way
If they're
around
made mistakes,
sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah, sometimes young managers promoted to older people like me, and do you take instruction from them? But I'll answer your question there. So maybe an older manager communicating with a junior one, is that the
Yeah.
scenario?
Yeah.
Well, you just got, for me, it's always about being honest and fair with reference to data if that's appropriate. And it's not about you and them, it's about the company. Always bring it back to the company. If I'm talking in a school, it's about the child. If I'm talking about a company, it's about the company's is progress, the efficiency, the profit, the effectiveness of the company. So that's where I put it. So it's not a personalized thing. But, you know, you've got to be honest with people and talk to them about what you see as an area for development. And sometimes we call it the sandwich, don't we? You know, give somebody something good at first, give them the filler, which is not so good, then give them a good thing to finish with. And we talk about the feedback principles. So if you're somebody older, giving somebody some feedback, which you found them comfortable with, always start on a positive. Yeah. The second bit, the middle bit, the sandwich, room for improvement, but always finish off on a positive, because that's where you sort of heal relationships. So again, that sandwich approach to it is a very good way of thinking about it.
Yeah, okay. And the last one is a bit linked to those principles, how to raise issues without seeming to be moaning.
Yeah, and again, if you raise them every single time, then you would be perceived, and it might be true you're being perceived as moaning. All I would say is pick your battles very carefully. What's most important, you know, and choose that one and go with it. But if you pick up everything, you could be seen as nitpicking and a moaner for some people. Yeah, some companies might like that, but I would pick them very carefully. Is this important to me? Yeah. Does it get me upset? Yeah. Does it get me worrying? Yes. Well, let's go and throw it out there, and I'll worry about the other ones and afterwards, because when you deal with the first one, perhaps the most important one, the other ones might fall into line and they might resolve themselves based on the first confrontation or assertion.
Yeah. Okay. Are you okay to stay for a bit longer, Ross?
Yeah,
Because we've
yeah,
got
yeah,
more.
it's fine.
All right. Speaking to management in other departments.
Yeah, sometimes we have this very silo effect where we all know silos and we're our own company. We're not to do with you. And coming across, I had this in professional football where the marketing department wouldn't speak to the commercial department unless there was a revenue stream in it for them. And it was very competitive. And so you didn't want to keep going to the chief executive all the time. He's not talking to me. They're not giving me this. You've got to approach them. And again, you know, don't be scared of this approach and don't go for tit for tat. Just go and approach people and say, this is one of the barriers at the moment. I'm feeling it really struggled to get the department to do this in line with the company goals. You could help me a lot here with your expertise and guidance. Always throw a few compliments in there. Is it possible? Ask a question rather than make a statement. Is it possible I can get your expertise on this challenge at the moment, please? So asking questions, giving them a compliment in a way. Yeah, can I have your expertise to solve this? For whom? The company, not for me, for the company. And I think I used those parameters quite well when I was doing lots of work and have to negotiate. So it's about asking questions, asking for expertise. The benefit is to the company.
Another really good one. How can I use assertiveness and a change mindset to ensure delegated work is completed and I don't take it back to do myself?
Yeah, delegation, the art of delegation, isn't it? If you do it all yourself, you'll wear yourself out. And what you need to impress upon your team is that everybody's a vital part of this. And if somebody's not doing their bit of it, everybody else will ultimately suffer for this. So we're all part of this collective team. If you've got a challenge doing this or a problem doing this, then tell me before it comes to the result stage. Tell me along that process if there's a kink in the line that you can't sort out. Tell me before we get to results there. And I think a good manager is very proactive in this. Have you got what you need for the job, Jenny? Have you got all the tools, got all the support? Yes. Are you happy to finish it? Can you finish it? Do you need my help now? And troubleshoot, that's a good way of saying it. Troubleshoot before you're actually being judged at the end, rather than get to the end and try and trip people up.
Absolutely. Sound advice. Well, we've gone 5 minutes over, and so we'll pause and call it a day there. But just wanted to thank you all for just being really understanding with us, because we had a few hiccups along the way with the survey and the sound for a moment. So thank you for sticking with us. We're really glad you did. We're next going to be together a bit sooner than usual. So the next one is on the 2nd of November, which is National Stress Awareness Day, and that's on Eventbrite. So do join us for that. We'd love to see you. And then we'll have them later in the month into December as well. So thank you so much, everybody. And finally, Ross, thank you so much for joining us and delivering that session. I certainly feel more confident, and I shall be more assertive. So job
Good.
done.
The internet can't beat us.
It won't defeat us. Thanks all for joining us. Have a
Thanks,
good day.
guys. Thank
Bye.
you.